Okay, I got some drop charts on the Browning Buckmark here. And what I wanted to say about this pistol is I found that I can shoot this just as good at any distance as if I put on a dot sight. But that's just me. Some of you might want to put on a dot sight. But my groupings for 10 shots for some of the better pellets, I'd say would be about 12 yards, about 1.5 inch groups, something like that, for 10 shots. And at 25 yards, about 3 inches or something like that. But that's also, your setup and stuff, on bench or whatever, however you're holding the pistol to, and getting used to the trigger. So I just wanted to throw that out to you. Expect about 1.5 inches at 12.5 yards for 10 shot groups, and 3 inch groups at 25 yards. So it's pretty much a can buster for the most part. Now these drop charts I'm going to show you, I had to max out the elevation on the Buckmark, and as far as you can go would be right about here. If you can see that right there, you can see where this right here kind of lines up with the top right here. That's about as far as you can go, because you don't want that screw popping out. So that's why the dot sight comes in handy for anything after 25 yards. But this is just a drop chart test for 25 yards to see what kind of performance we can get out of the Browning Buckmark. This is a spring piston pistol. So when you cock it, there's a spring piston in there with a seal on it, and it comes forward, pushes air through the hole. Kind of think of it as a syringe or something like that. And then you put the pellet right in there, and the air comes from here, pushes the pellet through the barrel. Now I wanted to show you something. If you look right there, that hole right there, that's the chamber. And what you want to do is, a lot of people forget this. Spring piston rifles and pistols do need chamber oil, although you don't need a lot. This is the best way to do it. You got your RWS chamber oil here, and what you do is you put in this little shot glass like 2 or 3 drops. I would say 2 if you want. And after a few hundred shots, like say maybe 200 or 300 shots, you take this here and then you put it down that chamber. You just kind of squirt it in like that. The reason why the needles are bad, I'll tell you why. The reason why the needles are bad, because you got this aluminum needle that goes on here, but you can't see the drops coming out of the needle into the chamber. So you have to put on a lot of, especially air rifles, you have to put that down quite a ways. But I thought the better way to do it is to use this, and then once you fill it up, just give it a squirt, and the air pressure from this eyedropper, you can get this at a craft store. The air pressure from the eyedropper, when you push like this, will squirt it all the way down to the bottom onto the piston seal. And the other thing is making sure these screws are tight and stuff like that. And then of course lubricate your hinge part right there. Lubricate that. But other than that, it's pretty easy to maintain this pistol. So on with drop charts here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the pellets right away so we can get them out of the way. Tell you what they are. The 3 pellets I use. So I don't know if you can see these clearly or not, but I'm going to point them out to you here. So we got the trophy pellet. That's an alloy pellet. That's 5.56 grains there. We got the Air Arms Falcon. This one's 7.33 grains, and we got the H&N Excite Hammer pellet. This is 7.87 grains. This one's an economical pellet to shoot. It's $5.50 for 500 or something like that. This one here, I'm not sure how much that is, but it comes in a tin of 300. And this one here, maybe $12, $13. But I recommend going with this one here. It might cost you a little more, but if you're just using iron sights, this one is going to have the flattest trajectory. if you're going to use these other heavier pellets, what you should do is sight it in at 10 yards, and that's going to give your flattest trajectory, you know, for them short ranges. But if you want to go out far, obviously you're going to have to raise up the rear sight. So for a flat trajectory, I would recommend the trophy pellets, the Field Target Trophy 556 alloy pellets. So them are tin based. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the velocities first. So what we got here, the 556 I showed you, the lightest, that's the muzzle velocity is 388 feet per second. The 7.33 is 321. The 787 is 308. Now this test that I'm doing, this is just for reference only. This is like a quick crony test, quick 3 or 4 shots at 25 yards just to see, you know, what this Browning is doing, so people online understand what they can expect if they get a Browning Buckmark. So anyway, what we have here is, I'm going to read this off and then I'll show you on the chart here the drops. So if you look right here, you know, this big piece of black tape at 25 yards allows me to put the front sight under here and have some kind of reference so I can hold still. And I used a pistol rest to do this test, so I was as still as I could be to kind of get some accurate information here on the drops. So the 5.56 grain pellet, we had a 1.5 inch up from the aim point. So the aim point is right on the bottom here, so it came up a 1/2 inch. The 7.33 grain, we came down right here to minus 1.5 inches. The 787, we came down right about here for average for most of the shots, about 4 inches. And you just have to remember, at this distance they are going to scatter, so you have to fire a lot of shots to find out, you know, what your drop is going to be, because you can't just go by one shot, because they're going to be slightly scattered anywhere from 2.5 to 3 inch groups. So, but anyway, let's take a pop can here and let's see what happens at 25 yards. So once again, my aim point is I'm putting the front sight right under there. So there's my aim point. Here's the pop can. So we're coming up a 1/2 inch. So if you look here with the 5.56, if we aim right at the bottom of the can, we're probably going to hit the can. So that's good. No matter where we aim, if we aim at the bottom or even a little higher, that pellet should hit that can quite a bit. The 7.33 grain pellet right there, you can see that one's right about here. So what we need to do is we need to raise our aim point at least right about here or up higher to hit somewhere in that can. And then finally the 787, which is down here, excite hammer is what they call it actually. You'll notice that when you put the can here that a lot of the shots might go under, so you're going to have some holdover on that. A little bit of holdover right about here. So the front sight, you're going to have to put it up there. Now once again, this is just for reference. Now this is shooting from a table that's, let me see how many inches this table is here. Well, we got about 2.5 foot table, and the target, let's see where it was standing, is a little over 1 foot. So you do have kind of a slight angle, but I'm just doing this for reference. So in other words, if you're sitting at a table and you're shooting down at a target that is about as high as this is kind of like what you can expect out of the Browning Buckmark. So anyway, the trigger is kind of hard getting used to and stuff like that. The other thing I wanted to tell you is you have to expect not too much out of this pistol because of the fact that it's got a very low velocity. 300 feet per second was meant more for 10 yards instead of 25 yards. And that's where we're pushing it out. 388 feet per second right here. The 5.56 going 388. Now that's getting closer to 25 yard velocity. You want about 380 FPS to get out to 25 yards for sure for any pellet. So you want that good velocity. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you didn't see that close-up of the pellets, maybe I can zoom in right now. I do have a pellet gallery video. It's a slideshow type thing that I have on my channel that shows you all the pellets close up in a dish or whatever. But let me zoom this in right here. Oh, okay, good. Looks like it's going to work out after all. Another little trick I use to clear cameras that kind of fuzz out on you. Sometimes you can just take your hand like this, pull away. See how that works? All right, so this is the 5.56 trophy pellet, field target trophy. Sometimes I don't say the full name because sometimes names got 4 or 5 parts and I got tired of saying it, so I'll just say 5.56. So there's the 5.56. Here's the 7.33. Here's the 7.48. And most of your Excite pellets will have them little fins right there on them. So you got the pointed one, you got the wad cutter, and then you got this one. So very inexpensive pellets to shoot, and they do pretty well in some air rifles. So once again, here's the 7.33 grain. Here's the field target trophy. The thing I like about these field target trophies is they're probably dimensionally perfect because of the simple fact that tin is harder than lead. So you don't get damaged skirts. I don't think I've ever found one damaged skirt on this little alloy pellet ever. So, and the other good thing about tin is for resistance coefficient, which is different than ballistic coefficient, inside the barrel, the resistance coefficient of tin on a scale is 0.5 compared to lead, which is 1.5. So that tells you how slippery it is. So tin it's got good properties as far as going through barrels, and that's why they make these pellets out of tin alloy. This will probably melt on the stove. These other ones, they'll probably take 600 degrees or something like that to melt. But these ones, when you're done shooting them and stuff, the metal on these is kind of like jewelry quality. I've actually casted little crosses and stuff with these pellets. You know, just little casting projects and stuff. Because this metal melts at a very low temperature, about 450, so it's kind of like pewter in a way. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, you guys. If you have any questions about the Browning Buckmark, let me know. The Browning Buckmark, I think, sells for, gosh, like 40 bucks or something like that. It's a little bit better than the P17, but it's not as powerful. But the thing that it's better than the P17 is the fact that you can adjust the sights, and there's some tension in there in them screws, whereas the P17, it gets kind of loose on you. So that's one thing I don't like about the P17, so I'm always having to, you know, do things to the rear sights to get them to stay and stuff like that. But although this is lower velocity, it's still a fun pistol, so I'll show you it one more time here. And then I'll show you the targets that you're going to be shooting when you get this here. So at 15 yards, or 12.5 yards, this Dixie cup here, it's about 2 1/8 wide right here. So this would be kind of like a nice target right here. And it's about maybe 1.5 inches at the bottom. So Dixie cup at 12.5 to maybe 15 yards. And then a pop can at 25 yards, and that's about the best you're going to do. If you want to put a dot sight on it, the nice thing, about the Browning Buckmark is it's already got that weaver rail, so you can pick up a dot sight. You don't necessarily need a true glow sight. I remember buying this years ago for $60, and I could have bought probably 3 of these from other manufacturers on Amazon that make these sights here for, gosh, maybe 20 bucks or something compared to 60, and they work pretty good actually. So even though they're cheap, they still work great. So if you're looking at 20 bucks for one of these, and you're looking at 40, so that's 60, and then another for a tin of 300 of these field target trophies right here, maybe, I don't know, maybe $13 or something, I'm not sure, but that's if you want this kind of pellet. So yeah, for a little over $60 you can get started shooting with the nice little dot sight. They are kind of fun actually, the dot sights. And what I would do if I were you, when you're adjusting a dot sight for 25 yards, what I would do if I were you is get the hard work out of the way by sighting in this pistol with this dot sight at 10 yards. And then all you have to do is adjust your elevation right here. And a lot of times that's all you need is to adjust your elevation. But if you just start aiming at 25 yards and you try to adjust this, it's much harder because the closer you are, the more you can get that windage fixed right away first. So once you get your windage, like for instance, if this is your windage and the pellet's right here, at close range you can bring in the pellet so that the windage is at least okay. And then once you got the windage, then you got the elevation. And obviously there is some windage adjustment out further, but at least you can get all the hard work done and out of the way, so that way you don't spend all day and using up all your pellets. Usually what I do is I sight it in for a pellet that's similar and cheaper, like I'll sight it in with these Excite pellets first because they're cheaper at 10 yards, and then when I'm done sighting it in with these cheap ones, then I'll go back to these Falcons. And these Falcons are the ones I shoot the most in here, 7.33 grain Falcons. These are also JSB. They're pretty much the same. I've had JSB and Falcons from Air Arms, and they're pretty much the same. I can't tell any difference from them. So the Air Arms ones are cheaper though. So, but anyway, thank you very much for watching the video, you guys.